Hello, I'm Adam,
I'm Adrian.
and welcome to Cast from the Crypt. Today we're talking about Depraved. Came out in 2019, directed by Larry Fessenden, I believe. How'd you feel about this movie?
I was not impressed,
Okay.
and I'm shocked to find out a lot of people adore this movie.
Yeah, I've found the same thing. Yeah.
Which, whatever, you know. I'm down to discuss all the things this movie does well, but I'm not quite seeing it. I don't know. How did you feel?
Out of five, I give it like a 2.5.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's not terrible. But
Yeah.
it was just kind of all right.
I read a review that stuck out to me about this movie. If you're not familiar or if you've never heard of this movie, it's essentially a twist on, the classic Frankenstein story, mad doctor wanting to work in his laboratory on a new being, creating a new being from old body parts from other corpses, and the things that ensue when you try to play God. Right, that's the basic premise here. And one of the reviews that I read said, this movie, Larry Fessenden took a dead story like Frankenstein that nobody cares about anymore and made it wholly original and did something with the dead story that nobody has ever thought to do. And a lot of the reviews kind of make claims similar to that one, that this is, a very fresh, I don't know, a newer version of the story. But Frankenstein, I mean, you'd agree with me, right? Super overdone. Like 1,000 people have done this sort of thing.
Oh my god! Yeah, this is one of the most adapted stories in like modern horror. Frankenstein the movie came out in 1931. The Boris Karloff one, and we've been remaking this story ever since. It's not like this is new. It's not like this. It's unique to adapt Frankenstein. And as for like a refreshing version, it's not that different. I feel like from it's not. Yeah, no, I don't. I can't agree with that at all.
I can't either. I will say, I feel like people like this movie because it does some interesting visual things. I will use the word interesting. I personally found them to be really random and kind of uninspired. There's several moments in the scene, in the movie where they play with like these sort of After Effects esque transitions, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I
Right?
know
Like
exactly what.
our main character, the monster in this film, named Adam, named of course after Adam from Adam and Eve. Again, this is something that's been done 1,000 times, but anytime he like feels something new, or let's say his neurons are firing, or let's say he gets an injection from the crazed scientist named Henry, we will see like these artsy sort of glammy neon effects. So like if he has a liquid being injected into his vein, we'll see like a liquid filter appear on the screen. I don't know how to uh, describe it differently than that, but they do it a lot in this movie. And I think that some people are really into that sort of visual storytelling. I think that it's alluring for some folks. This movie has a lot of indie flair to it, and I understand wanting to celebrate small distributors such as IFC, right, that are putting out these independent films. But I can't pretend, no matter how independent this movie is and how much I would like it to be great, I can't pretend it does anything new or altogether interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So what the transition thing is kind of like it seems like they did some like long exposure video of like some sort of light, you know when people do like a time lapse of like an entire night where they'll overexpose like a field of fireflies, and so the movement of the light source creates these long trails of light, and it looks like they took that and just kind of put it over the film as like a filter, and that's how I'll describe the transitions. Sometimes I like them, sometimes they do something a little more creative than that, and a little more seamless, a little like it fits into the film more, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, kind of blobby and doesn't really work that well for me. I get what they're trying to say. It's like they're kind of sort of trying to put a visual element to maybe the idea of like this creature's neurons firing, or kind of like his brain plasticity working. Yeah, it's him thinking.
His thoughts, right? Any like external and internal stimuli that he's reacting to, they're trying to make you see on screen. I got it, but I don't know. It didn't quite work for me, and I think personally, I felt none of them really looked that good.
No, Jimmy Neutron did it better.
Oh my God, that Jimmy Neutron comparison was made today.
Oh, was it?
While watching this movie, yes. So, yeah. I mean, just not for me, to be honest. I'll say this: big fan of the poster.
Yeah.
Really cool, badass poster.
Yeah. Oh, I hated to judge a movie by its cover, but cool cover.
Yes, very, very cool cover. So this is a simple retelling of Frankenstein. It's got a slightly different take on it because we follow this character named Henry. He lives in Brooklyn, and he was an army medic, and now he is suffering from PTSD, though of course he is in denial. He witnessed some really traumatic and horrible things while he was overseas, and now he has filled his time with this project, trying to create life out of dead things, body parts. And that's the movie, right? It does try to do some interesting things, which I applaud it for, right? It introduces this almost romantic character, this girlfriend that he has that his relationship is a little unclear with. There's also this very eccentric character, Polidori, that I found just nauseating.
Oh man, I have thoughts on him that...
Yeah, I found just nauseating. And frankly, I found like far less interesting. They really build up this Polidori character, and for me, there was not quite anything there. Because one of the worst actors in the films plays this character that we were waiting 40 minutes to see, and then when we do, he's like some dweeb. Also, I don't know if you recognize this guy, but he's one of the dudes in the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, is he? Well, yeah. Sorry to this man.
I'm also sorry to this man. I didn't recognize him in the movie, but I read up on him, of course, afterwards, and that's his biggest claim to fame.
So the biggest divergence from the original story, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and this movie's plot, of course it takes place in the modern day and everything, but that's, modern Frankenstein, woo, the biggest difference is in the original novel, Dr. Frankenstein makes a monster out of human parts that is wholly and uniquely its own life. It is created out of all these dead things, but it is its own separate sentient being than all the things it's made of. It is the sum of all its parts. It's not just the parts. This monster is kind of just this guy that they resurrected. He had a life. He's made out of a bunch of different body parts, sure, but they mainly use this one guy's brain And so it's kind of like he's been resurrected. He was another real living human person before he became this Frankenstein's monster. So a lot of the movie is about him kind of almost remembering his past and struggling with what happened to him and how he came to be. While in, of course, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, he's his own thing.
There are two moments in this movie that I did think were strong. I thought the cold open was good. Not the most well-acted thing I've ever seen, but the cold open introduces these two characters. Were the characters in the beginning named Lucy and Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, so we meet this young couple, Lucy and Alex. There's some clunky expositional writing in the cold open. You know, they're moving in together, but they're just out of college, and she makes an offhanded comment about him being a great father one day, and it really freaks him out. And he's clearly having some commitment issues, and it is, again, clunky and expositional, but we get a clear sense of relationship, and the characters are human enough that I was with them on this ride. But the ending of the cold open sees Alex walking out of his girlfriend's apartment, what is presumed to be their shared apartment soon, and tragically and randomly, he is stabbed to death brutally in the street. Then we actually get the rest of the movie, right? We meet Henry and we meet all these other characters that seemingly have nothing to do with Alex and Lucy. It's later that we learn through a series of short clips that come to us through Adam's eyes, memories and stuff that have faded into the recesses of his brain, that we learn that is actually Alex. That brain belonged to Alex at one point. And I quite enjoyed that, right? I thought that it was interesting to have these little leaks from a past life constantly afflicting Adam. And I also like the ending because they bring it full circle, and it's still very tragic and one of the more well-done aspects of the film. Part of me wishes that was the majority of this film, that we could have focused on these two characters, this young couple, and what happens to them after this awful situation. What Lucy's journey was, as you know, she's searching for her boyfriend. I think that might have been a more interesting and original movie, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, well, kind of like a big theme of this movie is like, is this creature the same guy? You know, he's obviously different. He's messed up. He's literally parts of other people, but he's mainly retaining the memories of this one man. So can he reconcile his new half state of existence with his old life? That's like a big question that this movie presents us with. But it doesn't really get developed that much. Yeah, like I would have loved to see his old girlfriend Lucy be more of a character than she is. She's pretty much gone for most of the film. After the cold open, like there's a couple scenes she's in where like they just see her. Like she's really just seen. She doesn't have any lines really. And I would have loved to see, like, I don't know, a little more thought put into that aspect of the plot, because we focused way too much on Henry, who is the Dr. Frankenstein character in this story, and his relationship with Polidori. And I'd love to talk about him. Like you said, worst acted character. Like, for me, by far the worst acted, but also the worst written. So maybe it's this guy's fault, but also maybe it's the writing. You know, you can't fault him entirely on the acting. He's basically this rich, eccentric scientist who's funding Henry's experiments, and he's made this miracle pill that basically just resurrects people. They don't go into it too much, of course, but they spend, like you said, 40 minutes talking about like, oh, well, Polidori's gonna get here, he's gonna be important, and they just keep mentioning this character's name over and over again, hyping him up like building up to, okay, well, we're gonna meet this character, it's gonna be this huge thing, and then he's like, he's so unrealistic. You know, it's that classic, like, well, rich people are crazy. He's really an eccentric rich guy, so he does crazy, weird things, and he's got an obsession with old-timey weapons, and he loves doing drugs, and, like, you know, they just make him like a fiend and a freak, and that's his character. And he doesn't have any, like, I don't know, he felt so not real. I did not buy into this character for a second, and we get so much screen time, so much of this runtime dedicated to this man. I would have loved to see him get completely axed, and then we focus on Lucy and Alex, now Adams, sort of struggle. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think personally there was a far more interesting movie in this movie that could have been uncovered and should have been made. I think my thoughts would have been far more different. I'm curious to know, you know, how many rewrites were done, how much change this script and this concept went through, because surely the tragic love story that, like, both of us would have preferred came to mind. I'm sure that thought had to have come up, but why was it not taken to the screen? I don't know. I briefly want to talk about the actual distributor of this film, the ones that picked this up, because I find IFC, especially IFC Midnight, to be very interesting. You know, there's IFC, which is owned by AMC, and then they have like the specific IFC Midnight label. And I've seen many a indie horror movie from this particular label, and I have not enjoyed a single one of them, I don't think. I'm really not interested. And IFC Midnight, unfortunately, right, is the division that focuses on sci-fi, horror, the thrillers, the grittier stuff. But I don't know. Just an observation, right? Like, I've watched a lot of their stuff. I think Hulu in particular, where we watch this movie, has a lot of these films owned by and distributed by IFC Midnight, and they're like all duds in my opinion. I've never been impressed, and I don't know why. I think it's a shame that the horror arm of this fairly large subsidiary puts out such mediocre stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to look through. I don't think I've seen any of these. I don't know what you've seen. I've seen The Wind. I've seen The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Me too. That's probably their best one.
I think probably, yeah. I'd agree with that. Well, okay. I actually, do you know why it's their best one? Do you know what we love?
Of course. Brian Cox?
No.
Oh.
That's not what I was going to say. Okay. I don't know when this was going to come up, but I've been meaning to tell you this for a while. This movie, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, is directed by Andre Øvredal. Do you know what he directed? What other movie?
No, but it sounds familiar.
Well, that's because he directed one of our faves. He directed Troll Hunter back in 2010.
Oh!
Yeah, legend.
Full circle.
Yeah.
What a legend. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just like a side note, right? I've just noticed that I really don't like the work that they put out.
Sometimes with these kind of movies, it is hard to find, like, you know, they're not all going to be winners. It's hard to find, you know, it's hard to produce a good indie movie. So I can respect the struggle, but also not this film. This isn't the best.
I mean, I think this movie can be as low budget gets. That's not the issue. Like, in my opinion, right? That's not the issue here.
No. I don't. Yeah, no.
I find the writing clunky. I find the performances awful. Joshua Leonard, that's the actor that plays Polidori, and the one that, of course, is in the Blair Witch Project. You know, famously, the Blair Witch Project people, of course, left the theaters thinking that those were real people and that they all actually died and were missing. his performance in this movie made me wish that that was the case.
Damn,
That
Jesus.
man never existed.
Oh my God.
That man never existed. No, not the actor. But like, maybe we would have never gotten this.
Okay, all right. Well, it's intense.
Especially his death at the end.
Well,
it's so bad.
yeah. Okay, some more thoughts for me, I guess. First of all, let's talk about the monster, Adam. First of all, the name, very cliche. There's a lot of comparisons in the novel, of course, to like God created man, and then man now has created something else. So as Adam was the first creation of God, so should the monster be named, Adam. There's this comparison, this analogy throughout the book, and so every adaptation thereafter has to feel cool and original by naming the monster Adam. This is one of those mini films. I like the monster, though. Alex Bro is the man who played the monster. I think he probably gave the best performance in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's doing great. He seems to be like a Doug Jones type where he looks interesting enough and is proportioned in such a way that you could add a lot of makeup to him and kind of he'd be a good monster, I guess I should say. And he does make a really great monster in this movie. When he wakes up for the first time, I really loved the design. It's kind of hard to find a good Frankenstein monster design. And this one was pretty good. It was visceral. He's covered in these scars. He looks messed up. He had this one dead eye. He looked gross. He looked like a zombie that someone stitched together. And throughout the movie, he pretty quickly healed from that and got better and then started to look like a normal guy after a while. I don't know how I felt about that. On one hand, it makes sense, right? Like, he is a living thing. He should come to life, He's literally healing. I understand that and I like that. But on the other hand, I also really like gross monster. But it walks a good line. I like that. Okay, well, at the end of the movie, he reverts back to the sort of monster look. And I don't know how much sense that makes, but go off. I guess, I don't know.
I also really like the design of Adam. I thought that the scars were really well done. I love that you see him grow hair and heal. I'm with you, right? I prefer, actually seeing that growth later on when he reverts. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't quite understand the choice, but I was having a really hard time with not questioning every time I saw him and saw his scars, or why he was created from several different bodies. Presumably, he's already murdering people for these body parts. Why then do we have to have several different pieces? Why not just another body and then a brain? It just narratively didn't make sense to me. It was bugging me the entire movie.
Well, for me, yeah, it's back to this, are they going to be realistic or is he a ghoul? They can't make up their minds either. I say full ghoul. I want full ghoul, but I understand why you don't do that. Personally, my favorite part of his design is his arms. They really do look like 3 arms stitched together. And once again, this actor's kind of lanky, and it looks like his arms could be a little bit unnaturally elongated. And it is this way this character kind of holds himself. I think this actor does a good job with the physicality of the monster. But yeah.
No, I agree. I think he brings a lot to the role. I like watching him learn how to speak. I like watching him learn how to move in a more natural way. You do get the sense at the very beginning that he is learning how to walk, right, and function, but the way that he looks up to Henry, his creator, and emulates his movement, his speech. I enjoyed that part of the movie. There's just so much mess in this that I don't quite see. Again, I was really thrown by how positive the reviews were. One of them was like, the horror bros won't like this one. And that's us. We're the horror bros that won't like this one. But I crave this kind of movie. I do. I'm okay with a one-off story about a monster trying to adapt, right? And experiencing the world from such a skewed lens. Like, I'm into that. I just don't think this did it well, frankly. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's not that I wanted more gore. It's not that I wanted more monster. I got plenty of monster. The design is cool. It's literally everything else. It's the characters surrounding the monster. It's the relationships surrounding the monster. Everybody is a whiny asshole in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For me, I was on board. I was like, okay, all right. It's going. I'm invested. I'm seeing where it's going. And then Paula Dory shows up and really derails the movie. Like, the first thing he does is, like, he takes the creature, Adam, who at this point has kind of healed and looks presentably like a really scarred up human. And he takes him to a museum and, like, I'm going to teach him about art and stuff. And, okay, he's just learned how to speak, like, to dial it back. And he takes him to a museum and, like, just waxes poetically for a long length of time. And it's so, ugh. Eye roll. He doesn't, it's very, like, he's trying to be deep, but then is also the kiddie pool shallow character. And it's, I don't know, it feels like the movie's trying to say something, but is not saying anything very well through this character. This character sucks. After they go to the museum, he takes him to a strip club and gives him cocaine and fondles him a little bit. This corpse man. It's really gross. The creature keeps getting hit on in this movie, and like, he does. he's kind of handsome, the man who plays him, especially when he looks less scarred. But come on, come on.
Yeah, there's one scene in particular where Henry's girlfriend, forgive me, I don't remember her name.
Liz.
Thank you very much. Henry's girlfriend is, she's empathetic. She feels bad for him because this is just an awful situation to be in, right? I mean, to have to navigate the world like this as a creation, right? It's odd, and to have to be hidden so much. So she's empathetic. We get that very early on. Then there's a random scene where he just like cops a feel, but she also is really into it, and then she cops a feel, I think. And is it mentioned after that?
No, not really. They imply like he'll need, because he's a grown man creature, he'll need like, human interaction, human touch like that. And in the book they have this whole like, the monster wants a bride, he needs a mate. And so maybe this is kind of like that. He's understanding through these human characters kind of what intimate connection is, but he doesn't have one because he's a monster. And then later on in the movie, he actually does want Henry to make him a Frankenstein monster mate, just like in the book. But he does have interactions with female characters. And they imply, like, I don't know, maybe she did it because she felt sorry for him, or maybe even she got sent in kind of to take care of him. But I don't know. It feels really skimmed over. Yeah, like it kind of happens. That's kind of it.
It's weird.
It's pretty weird.
It's weird.
I saw a review describing this movie where they said that this was a good modern take because it's like if Frankenstein was a really immature dill hole kind of young guy, and that's why they like this take. But in the original novel, That's exactly what Frankenstein is. He's in college. He, makes an abomination with no thought of what he's going to do with it afterwards or what the repercussions will be or if this is wrong or not. And then he hates the creature immediately and is trying to kill it for the rest of the novel. Like, that's who Frankenstein is. That's the character. This isn't new. This is just modern.
You've read the book, right?
Yeah.
Of course. It's a classic, right? I mean, I'm fond of it myself. One of my favorite parts of that novel, right, is when at the very end the creature goes and says that he's going to die alone and doesn't want anybody to know anything about him anymore, and it goes to the Arctic, and there's this final moment of the creature drifting away, and I think on like a sheet of ice, and it's very, very tragic and very, very poetic and just lovely, and that's why that book is so well regarded. In this movie, the creature lives as a homeless man in Manhattan for the rest of his days, I think, is what we're led to believe.
Yeah. Well, okay. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but this movie, like, kind of discredits Henry, like, repeatedly. Frankenstein in the book, he made a creature out of a bunch of dead parts. Like, from nothing, he created life. Here, Henry thinks he created life. They kind of say he created life, but he didn't. He resurrected a guy. Still impressive, but he didn't make a guy. He just resurrected a guy, And then we find out later, like, okay, things are going wrong. The monster, just like in the book, kills a woman. They have to kill the monster. So Henry kills the monster. They bury it. They think it's over. And then that night, he crawls out of his grave and tries to enact his revenge. And we think that he can do this. They don't really say why he doesn't just die when he's shot. But the implication is kind of that this red pill he's been taking, that they don't talk about much in the movie. This red pill is what was able to bring him back to life. It's what has been keeping him alive. It, like, somehow, like, it can resurrect people. There's a scene where he has a flashback back to his time in the army, where he's having this PTSD, and he sees a soldier die in the field, and he puts that same pill into his mouth, and he wakes back up. He's alive again. So they imply that this pill resurrects people. And that also makes it kind of like, okay, well, Henry isn't really special then. It's really this magic pill. He didn't really do anything. And it continues to just kind of make Henry seem unimpressive. But at the same time is doing this, like, I don't know. I don't know how I felt about that. It felt like it turned into a convenient reason to keep the monster alive after a while. He's still alive because he took that pill. And he didn't know he took it.
Yeah. Yeah, the pills were weird. He takes a variety of medications throughout the movie. You're right. I didn't even think about the fact that like wonder medicine is definitely why this is even happening in the first place for Henry. But the creature does go on to live without the medication.
After a while,
that's the implication. Yeah. So
in the final scene where Polidori turns villainous and because he's an eccentric freak, tries to kill everybody with a crossbow, he shoots with a gun the creature in the heart. Like, can't come back from that. You're dead. But he just, like, is fine. And he, like, this kill you didn't like, he picks Polidori up and, like, kind of drags him out of the woods and dumps a bunch of pills in his mouth and throws him off a cliff. That's all we see. And then we hear Polidori, like, moaning. We don't really see him, but we hear moaning from the cliff. To me, this is implying that, like, he can't die now and he has this horrible fate of he has to suffer broken at the bottom of this cliff, but is also kind of immortal until these pills wear off.
Yep, that's exactly what I got from it too. Which, that's not the part of the kill I hated. It's watching that guy have to act for so long.
Yeah.
Like, his struggle with Adam is painful. It's like, God, okay, get the guy off the cliff. End it. Please.
Yeah, but this pill does trivialize the bringing back to life process. Like, at the end of the day, it is literally like, pop this pill into literally anything and it'll come back to life. Stitch a bunch of people together, pop a pill in it, it'll come to life. Who cares? You know? Polidori will live forever if they pop a pill in him. Stick it in this guy, he can get shot in the heart. For the movie that is kind of committed to realism for a while there, it's kind of like at the end of the movie, okay, well, we're back to Boris Karloff. We're back to Tesla coils in the head. You know, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the red pills. I don't know if they were a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. All I know is I did not like this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost doing something, almost saying something, and then kind of gets lost in the sauce. Too caught up on Polidori.
Yep, too caught up on Polidori. Too expositional. Yeah.
It's heavily expositional, but then, like, the dialogue is not that well written. It's clunky, especially anything Polidori says. This strange poetic waxing of nonsense, you know?
I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy this more. I know that this does feel, at least the premise, right? Feels right up your alley.
Yeah, I love a good
this was better for you.
I mean, I wish it was better for you too. I'm sure you would have loved to have seen a good movie.
I want a good new Frankenstein movie and a good new Dracula movie. Like, that would be sick.
Yeah.
One day.
One day it will happen, because this is a story that has been adapted since it was made. What is it, like almost 200 years later, right? We're going to adapt this story till the end of time. So I know eventually one of them will probably be good, but it's okay. You know, so every movie you watch is not going to be the best movie you watch, and you don't know what's in a movie until you watch it. So I am still dedicated and optimistic to the watching, to the exploring of new films in this genre.
Me too.
Well, it didn't turn out maybe as great as we would have liked it, but thank you for exploring this film with me.
No, I appreciate it. I'll take an indie Frankenstein movie, even if it's not the best.
Yeah.
But thank you for putting me onto it.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe we'll watch an old reliable next time, just to feel something good.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining me, AJ.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.